South Carolina first tried to add the firing squad to restart executions after its supply of lethal injection drugs expired and no company was willing to publicly sell them more. But the state had to pass a shield law keeping the drug supplier and much of the protocol for executions secret to be able to reopen the death chamber. To carry out executions, the state switched from a 3-drug method to a new protocol of using just the sedative pentobarbital. The new process is similar to how the federal government kills people on death row. South Carolina law allows condemned people to choose lethal injection, the new firing squad, or the electric chair built in 1912. Between 2011 and 2024, no one has been executed in the state due to pharmaceutical companies not wanting to sell the drugs needed for lethal injections. Lethal injection has been the legalized primary form of execution since 1995. The passage of Act 43 of 2021 allowed executions to resume with the electric chair as the primary form of execution. In March 2022, the South Carolina Department of Corrections announced they were ready to carry out executions by firing squad. Inmates will now have the choice to be executed via electrocution or firing squad, with electrocution being the primary method. On July 31, 2024, the Supreme Court of South Carolina ruled that the death penalty was legal, including the execution methods of electrocution and firing squad, both of which were approved by a majority of the judges, which paved the way for the potential resumption of executions. A total of 32 inmates remained on death row in South Carolina as of July 2024. South Carolina has put 43 people to death since the death penalty was restarted in the U.S. in 1976. In the early 2000s, it was carrying out an average of 3 executions a year. Only 9 states have put more people to death. Since the unintentional execution pause, South Carolina's death row population has dwindled. The state had 63 condemned people in early 2011. It now has 31 after Owens' death Friday. About 20 people have been taken off death row and received different prison sentences after successful appeals. Others have died of natural causes. 13 years after the state's last execution, the state resumed executions by carrying out the death sentence of convicted killer Freddie Eugene Owens on September 20, 2024. South Carolina's last execution was in May 2011. It took a decade of wrangling in the legislature, first adding the firing squad as a method and later passing a shield law to get capital punishment restarted. Freddie Eugene Owens was convicted of killing Irene Graves in 1999. Prosecutors said he fired a shot into the head of the single mother of 3 who worked 3 jobs when she said she couldn't open the store's safe. Born in South Carolina on March 18, 1978, Freddie Eugene Owens, whose mother was 18 when she gave birth to him, was placed under foster care at the age of 5, and he reportedly experienced abuse and neglect from his family. He was eventually returned to his biological mother, who married another man after separating from his birth father, who was abusive towards his wife and children. However, Owens's stepfather abused his mother, and Owens himself witnessed his grandmother shooting a person when he was 7. Owens was diagnosed with antisocial personality disorder at a young age due to his upbringing. On November 1, 1997, in Greenville, Owens and his 3 friends, Lester Young, Nakeo Vance and Stephen Andre Golden, went outdoors together with the intention to commit armed robbery. While Young and Vance were in another location, Golden and Owens barged into a convenience store and held the store's female clerk at gunpoint. According to Golden, who testified in Owens's murder trial, Owens gunned down the 41-year-old clerk, Irene Granger Graves, April 6, 1956 to November 1, 1997, after she failed to open the safe. And she died of a gunshot wound to the head. Golden and Owens fled the scene with $37.29 from the cash register and met up with Vance and Young, who were later told that a woman was shot by Owens during a robbery attempt. At the time of her death, Graves was a single mother with 2 sons and 1 daughter. Owens was arrested on November 11, 1997, and together with 18-year-old Golden, was charged with murder. Golden made a plea bargain with the prosecution, who agreed to have the murder charge and death penalty taken off the table. Golden was found guilty of voluntary manslaughter and sentenced to 28 years in prison. Young and Vance were also charged in connection with the crime, but the outcome of their cases were unknown. Hanging over his case was another killing, after his conviction, but before he was sentenced in Graves' killing, Owens fatally attacked Christopher Lee, whom he was incarcerated with at a county jail. Less than 12 hours after he was convicted of the murder of Irene Graves, on February 16, 1999, Freddie Owens killed a fellow prisoner while he was in prison. The victim was identified as 28-year-old Christopher Brian Lee, who was serving a 90-day jail term for a traffic offense. Owens gave a detailed confession about how he stabbed Lee, burned his eyes, choked and stomped him, ending by saying he did it because I was wrongly convicted of murder, according to an investigator's written account. The confession was read to each jury and judge, who went on to sentence Owens to death. Owens had 2 different death sentences overturned on appeal, only to end up back on death row. Owens was charged with murder in Lee's death but was never tried. Prosecutors dropped the charges with the right to restore them in 2019, around the time Owens ran out of regular appeals. Owens was convicted of killing Irene Graves in 1999. Prosecutors said he fired a shot into the head of the single mother of 3 who worked 3 jobs when she said she couldn't open the store's safe. Owens was charged with murder in Lee's death but was never tried. Prosecutors dropped the charges with the right to restore them in 2019, around the time Owens ran out of regular appeals. While the legal process was ongoing in his case, Freddie Owens remained on death row at Broad River Correctional Institution while awaiting his execution. In 2015, Owens converted to Islam and he went by the Muslim name Khalil Divine Black Son Allah, although he continued using his original name in court proceedings for clarity. In 2023, Owens was one of the several death row inmates who filed a lawsuit to the courts of South Carolina, seeking to ban the use of firing squad and electrocution on the grounds that they were cruel and unusual punishments and would cause unnecessary pain and suffering to the condemned. The state's legal representatives submitted that the execution methods fit the existing protocols and the law did not make it necessary that death had to be instantaneous or painless. 2 days before Owens's scheduled execution, on September 18, 2024, his lawyer submitted an emergency motion based on a written statement from his accomplice Stephen Golden, who stated that he falsely accused Owens as the shooter and claimed that the real killer was someone else, whom he did not dare to point out for fear that the man or his associates would murder him. And he chose to speak up out of conscience to not allow an innocent man to die in the place of the real killer. Owens's lawyers argued that in light of Golden's alleged admission to giving false evidence, the execution date should be staved off as it warranted the need for a new trial for Owens to prove his innocence. On September 20, 2024, Freddie Eugene Owens, 46, was executed by lethal injection at the Broad River Correctional Institute in Columbia, becoming the first inmate to be put to death by the state in more than a decade and the 14th in the nation this year. His execution began at 6:35 p.m. ET, and he was pronounced dead 20 minutes later at 6:55 p.m. Owens, 46, made no final statement. His last meal was 2 cheeseburgers, French fries, well-done ribeye steak, 6 chicken wings, 2 strawberry sodas and a slice of apple pie. When the curtain to the death chamber opened, Owens was strapped to a gurney, his arms stretched to his sides. After the drug was administered, he said bye to his lawyer and she said bye to him. He smiled slightly and his facial expression did not change much before he appeared to lose consciousness after about a minute. Then his eyes closed and he took several deep breaths. His breathing got shallower and his face twitched for another 4 or 5 minutes before the movement stopped. A doctor came in and declared him dead a little over 10 minutes later at 6:55 p.m. Thank you for watching Death Row.